know that a lot of people are probably just struggling with the idea of constantly postponing and being flexible. A lot of us are very to the book, to the detail. How can you offer some insight on how to just navigate this whole period?
Yeah, it's not an easy one. And I think the first thing is obviously having a planner or an expert in your corner.
Mm-hmm.
More than ever now, because I mean, at the end of the day, it's not that easy to know, 1 minute it's, the regulations are one thing, and then, a week later they're making adjustments, and then we're back to where we were. And just being able to really quickly go from plan A to potential plan B back to a plan AB-ish.
AB squared.
Is really, and funny enough, like we just dealt with that 2 weeks ago, where we're kind of in that June 5th cusp of things where we really didn't know, would we be ready to open a few things? And we're talking about going from like 0 to at least something. And even though there's not a huge guest count, people are still want to do something.
Do something, yeah.
Yeah, so really having someone on your side. And I think also a huge part of all of this is mindset. Tell yourself that no matter what you do, it will be beautiful. Your guests are going to like be there for you and enjoy the day, and everything will be, just awesome. That if you can get through that and kind of say, okay, whatever it'll be, like it'll turn out great, then that's half the battle.
Have you been surprised with some of the outcomes of these smaller COVID-friendly weddings?
I will tell you that they are some of my favorites.
Yeah.
They really are. And I have one bride I'm working with now, and the poor girl has changed her date so many times. In fact, she was even, pushed from initial April of COVID to probably 4 or so dates, then ended up in this July, and then now it's into September. And really she'll tell you, like every single time, I'm like, you don't understand how beautiful it is. Like 10 people, 25 people. I mean, it really is. It's that intimate dining experience with some of your closest or family or good friends that really make it so incredible and think of it like this, you almost get to have pretty much everything and anything you want for that wedding day. Because the budget that was going to be, call it $100,000 for, 200 guests or whatever it would be, 150, 200, is now, you're not even using a tenth of that, right? Like,
that's so true.
Think about it. And you could pick and choose all the pieces that you want. So I really think that it's really incredibly special. And I wish that people could, know what we already know, and have that feeling and be able to kind of just jump forward and get there so easily. But it's a tough one. It's almost like you have to divorce your initial date
plan, an idea.
It's like a huge attachment to what that date represented, and then to lose that and kind of be in this like whirlwind of one to the next. It is tough. It's been tough on them. It's been tough on the venues and vendors, and it's been incredibly tough on us, trying to manage not only all the details of everything, but the emotion that's attached.
When it comes to like the specifics of everything, are there things that people really shouldn't forget when it comes to navigating this kind of events during lockdown period?
I mean, it's not really a matter of forgetting. The main thing not to forget is the reason why you're getting married. that's the main one. But
very important.
Really true. Right, because that's the biggest one.
Yes.
And unfortunately, I feel like I have felt like, for some of the brides and, of the families that we've been planning other events for, sometimes it kind of gets lost, like the real purpose of what the event is. But as far as actual things, there's nothing, it's not about forgetting anything. It's all, you're still using all of the core pieces of what you would be using for a 200-person wedding. And I think that's what some people forget is that this isn't, doing a small 10, 25-person event in your backyard or, somewhere that can hold that is not having these things. There is the same, if not the more amount of work and detail that goes into these events, because you really want them to be super special. And so you're still having your photographer, your videographer, music, whatever aspects you could do. If we can have live musicians, great. If we can't, we're making a really great playlist. Like there are just so many of the initial pieces that you would be using that you would transfer over. So yeah, it is actually, well, think about this, right? You're going from, you know, a venue that does this every single weekend at minimum.
Right.
And if not almost every day, they're doing an event.
Well-oiled machine.
Well-oiled machine, a whole team of people that know exactly where tables are supposed to be, whether they're prep tables or guest tables, tables and chairs. They know where everything is. They have a, you know, one team in the kitchen getting ready, one team, you know, on the floor getting ready, one team taking care of, like, you know, the bride and the families and whatnot. And you're going to a backyard where the families have zero experience. And I hate to say it, but I have had a whole new appreciation for every vendor on my team since COVID, because any event that we've done, and we haven't really been able to have, you know, our full teams available, I have been every single role that there is,
sweating,
delivery,
running,
setup.
And you already run around a lot at events. I have seen you.
Yeah,
you do not stop.
It is wow. It's hardcore. Like I remember even in July, you know, I made this really nice, intimate anniversary for my husband and I, and it was literally my most favorite. We like transformed I transformed. Let's be clear, I transformed the entire pat terrace that we have into a whole different experience and whatnot. And I'm like, oh, sure. So I hired, of course, all the people that I love and work with.
Of course. And
the day came, and no exaggeration, I had to I was like dripping sweat. I did not even have time to shower. Because this like nice little dinner party that I was having for two, and what ended up being so, you know, logistically, you know, crazy as far as, you know, okay, like the decor coming in and the flowers and the this and the that and the mariachi band and whatever. I was sweating trying to put everything together, light the candles and bring it up and down. And it's so just funny. You literally ended up being every job there was.
Whoa.
And people think like, oh, sure, it's just in my backyard. I'm just going to have a small wedding and dinner for 10 people. And yeah, sure, if you want to open up the barbecue and toss on some burgers, it will be great, and you probably can do that no problem. But really, if you want an experience that is somewhat equatable to what you think or envision to having somewhere else and transferring it, there's just so many things that people don't realize and don't consider in their backyard.
And I'm curious to know, when booking these vendors, like we just talked about the tents, do you have to be like so much earlier these days, or just when you're postponing that date, like how much farther, because things are now selling out? Like, I'm kind of curious about that whole world and picking that date and dealing with that.
I think, you know, everyone that's pushed their dates as far as venues go, the venues are, you know, already booked into the next year because people had shifted and trying to be, you know, as safe as they could in choosing a new date. They kind of, some people went as far as they would be willing to go, which was kind of into 2022, hoping for the best. So things like that, that's a little bit of a tough one to get the venue of your choice. Like, there's a lot of things that are fully booked, like you can't get a single weekend. But as far as other vendors and things like that, most things you can get someone. Is it going to be your first choice? Maybe or maybe not. It just depends on how lucky you are, if the dates, you know, what you're picking and when you're choosing it. But things like tents and things that are something that everybody who is doing an outdoor event needs, like a tent, that's like you're stuck if you're not planning properly, right? So certain aspects you can kind of play with a little bit, and other ones are if you're switching or or having to navigate that, it's like you want to do it sooner than later.
Mm-hmm.
And even some of the venues, not all the venues own their tents. So some of those venues, right? Unless it's a permanent structure or a structure that they take down and up every year. But not every venue has theirs. And also then look at all the patios that, wanted and took up a lot of tenting also.
Yeah.
So there's just, they're
outdoor
real things.
Shelter.
They're real things. But a pro tip that people have not considered, most people don't realize, is that, like, for example, right now you can only have 10 people outside for a gathering. But the patios are open at their full capacity with the restrictions in mind. So, 4 people per table, unless you're in one bubble together, living at one house. And those tables are the 6 feet apart. But if the capacity of that space can fit those tables of 80 people on that terrace, you can buy out the entire restaurant and you can have your event and your dinner party at a restaurant.
What do you think about, for some of the people that are kind of getting these mini weddings and then sort of having delayed wedding celebrations or whatever you want to call them? I guess a lot of people are kind of eloping or having really small celebrations.
Well, we have one bride that is doing, which is, I just love this so much, is that, listen, every bride, I think, dreams about wearing their wedding dress again.
True.
Right, totally. But most people, their biggest fear is, will I fit into it, later? But they do want to wear it again. So, being able to, I have one bride that is actually already did a COVID wedding, and then their plan is to have a huge party on their first year anniversary, which to me is so nice and so special. And then you really get to celebrate with everyone, and, you want to put on your dress again, go for it. Like, you don't need to, but, why not? And some of them weren't even able to do photos, like, wedding photos. So again, have another bride that couldn't do wedding photos, and this summer, she's out and she's going to be doing those. So it's just, I think that there's so many fun pieces that if you want to make it fun again, and you want it to be special, it can be. Doing the celebration separate. I think there are some people that I noticed have felt that they would want to do that, like split the two. And then when it came down to it, they really ended up having such a great day with these 25 or 10 person, wedding ceremony ones, that they chose then not to carry on with the party. So I think their initial expectation is there's such a fear of loss of what they were supposed to have. And again, didn't really understand or know what that would look like and feel like to have this smaller event, that they had still planned to have this other event later. But I found a lot of them just kind of said, you know what, that's it. We'll put the money into a house.
Yeah, that I'm really curious about too. When is the best time to finalize that head count? You just don't, hey? You just kind of got to wait.
You just don't. Again, we're working one for August 15th right now. And they kind of, again, there was June last year. And they are very much, at this point, they're okay with their 25 people. They tried to push, and they're okay with 25 people. If it gets to be a bit more, then they'll make a decision if they want to add more. But the truth is, it will be, probably within a 2-week window, maybe, or less, if they can add stuff. And that means behind the scenes, a lot of work of redoing floor plans and renting more furniture and getting more table designs in and dishes and all the rest. But you kind of have to just wait and see. And as soon as will be a point where someone will, some of these brides will be lucky that we'll kind of hit our max for what this summer will be, whether it's, 50 or 75 or 100 people outside. And they kind of need to decide. But if someone thinks they're having 200 people,
I maybe reevaluate that one.
Right?
I would agree.
So I think that, you got to kind of see where you think it's going. You have to try and pretend you have a crystal ball, which none of us do. And that's been the hardest part of all of it, is that, you know, especially as planners, we're kind of expected that we have this crystal ball and be like, oh, you know what, on September 20th, you're going to be able to have everything.
Right.
But no, it doesn't really work that way. But, you know, our best guesstimate is by this date, it might look like this. And so let's plan for these numbers of what it is, and having the new step 1, step 2s that we have being rolled out, we can kind of guesstimate a little bit as to where we might be by a certain date. But there is a point right now where we just don't know what that will be. We also don't know if travel will be allowed from other countries to come in. And that changes also, because all of a sudden the guest count that you thought you were going to have, you know, based on the numbers, can change if people are allowed to then come in. So that's also like a there's so many
other thing. Do you have any tips for how to cut people off your list?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, we're kind of getting to the point where a lot of people have been at least one vaccination. I think people feel a little bit better right now. But cutting people off a list is just not, you know, it's a little bit of a tough one. But I would say that, you know, because the numbers haven't been so crazy big since last summer, we've been in a window where really it only has been small amounts of people, that it's been pretty easy, and people have been super understanding to know that, you know, we just can't have that many people. So we're just, it really ends up being close family and friends at that point, because, you know, you just can't. Now, if you're going from that, you know, all of a sudden 200 people have an invite down to like 100, it's a tough one. But then depending on the scenario, you know, if it gets to a point where it's a 50% capacity, or the numbers are higher, so let's just say that there's maybe, you know, 50 guests outside allowed, or even 80 guests, or whatever that number will be, you know, you can also do it where you kind of have one group that is there for ceremony and for a nice dinner party, and then maybe you have your friends come afterwards for an after party, and you can kind of split the group up a little bit and maybe do something really fun and interesting. And instead of, you know, for someone who may not have been considering having a video or whatnot, but maybe now some of the budget goes into your video and doing a same day edit, where the cameras followed you around all day, and they've been working tirelessly to produce this, you know, mini clip of your day and the ceremony and all of that, that can then be played for your friends portion later on, you know. So
that's such a cute idea. And these numbers too also include like servers or you know, depending on what your day looked like, you know, planners, anybody who was coming by, vendors, anything, right?
So you know, I don't think it's stated yet whether it will or it won't, but last summer it did. So I think when we got to 25 last summer, it included it wasn't including all of your staff and whatnot. But so I'm pretty sure for the next step, if we get to the 25, then you'll be able to have wait staff.
You have like a top tip for everybody to think of when they're doing these COVID weddings right now?
My biggest tip is think about 1 or 2, 3 wow factors that are genuine to who you are, so that when your guests come to your event, that they're really experiencing something that you and your, you know, husband to be or fiance, whatever, that you guys really do enjoy, whether it's something together, individually, a combination. That to me just makes it so wow, you know, and go with that.
Thank you all so much for joining us.
Thanks.
Don't forget to follow Candace, follow Crawoo, and we will see you guys in the next expert chat. Thanks everybody.
Bye.
Bye everyone.